to the first panel of day 2 of MUNers Across Borders MUN 2023 Summit. I'm so excited to welcome you all to the Women in MUN panel, and happy History Month. Obviously, this panel is really important for all of us to relay our experiences. And I am your co-moderator for today. My name is Noor Hassanin. I'm from Egypt. I work as a teaching assistant at the Arab Open University. I started my journey with Model Arabic first, MAL, and then started MEL as a delegate, loved it, became a director the next year, and then started my journey at World Youth Forum. So I stood in front of national spaces, and ever since then, been trying to elevate the role of Arab women, specifically in diplomatic spaces and the development field. And I'm so excited to be joined by these amazing women. I will let them introduce themselves, and I'm very happy to have all of us speak together today. And my initial introduction will start with Sarah, my beautiful co-moderator. You have the floor.
Well, thank you so much, Noor. I really appreciate you and the rest of your team providing this opportunity for all of us here today. So my name is Sarah. I'm currently based close to Berlin in Germany, also loving the international flair of this panel here as well. And I've been involved in Model UN for more than 10 years. So it's getting to that point where you don't admit how long you've been doing this almost. So, and I started as a delegate, then became a tutor and an advisor. And for the past 6 or 7 years, I've been a faculty advisor at a university in Germany. So I actually have the privilege of teaching Model UN to the newbies, which I very much appreciate. We also host our own conferences, and we attend different conferences all over the world. And I'm very happy to be here today. And I will pass on the mic to Alexandra.
Thank you very much, Sarah and Noor. So my name is Alexandra, simply Sasha. That's how people used to call me. And I'm from Kyiv, from Ukraine. I've been doing MUNs next year. I'm celebrating my 10th anniversary, for which I'm very much excited. So I started as a young girl. I was actually 12, and I didn't at the beginning realize what is going on and how it's supposed to be. But later I really liked it. And with the years, I started sharing, later organizing the conferences in Ukraine, and then later got the chance to participate in some international conferences, MUNs, which is very much exciting. And I can for sure say that MUNs can change the life, because that's how I chose what I'm studying, and I'm studying diplomacy and international cooperation. And I can say that this place really can make you strong and can make you the better version of yourself. So that's probably why I'm here today. Thank you. And I should pass the floor to Rose.
Thank you so much, Alexandra and Noor and Sarah, for your lovely introductions. My name is Rose Singh, and I'm from Nepal. And to give a head start for why I did MUNs and when I started them, I started it back in 2016 or 2015-ish kind of a thing, where I was in grade 10, and that was the first time that people in my school were learning what MUNs even are. So when I was in my grade 10 era, that was the time when I even got introduced to what it was. And that has impacted me a lot, because that shifted me from doing medicine as a career to doing human rights as a career, something that I am passionate about. And learning about the world, learning about how to speak, learning about different ways in which politics works. Sometimes it's real, sometimes it's not real, sometimes it's something you like, sometimes it's not. That's how I inculcated all the things that I've learned from MUNs over the year. And now I have participated in as delegates, but to be honest, I loved being there as a chair member, so that I could be able to direct the committee, or I could be able to do things and teach people the things that I was so oblivious. Like, I remember my first MUN, I did not speak a word. So that's how I see MUNs, and I feel like it's been a huge impact. And I love meeting everybody internationally because of that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rose, Sarah, and Alexandra. impressive introductions, this panel today is dedicated to us and to all women who experience challenges in model United spaces. And that brings us to our first topic. So let's talk about the preparation stage. Once you prepare to go to a conference or prepare to give a speech, are there any considerations that you have while preparing that are gender specific? So, what, for example, are perceptions that people might have of, for example, chairing teams that are led by women only, or maybe male-led chairing teams? And have you ever experienced that kind of gender-specific context in the preparation stage? And I would like to start with Rose, actually, because I know you have personal experience related to that question.
So, immediately when I'm thinking about my personal experiences with MUN, it's been kind of like bittersweet experiences. It started off great. It started off like an opportunity that I was very privileged to receive, because I still consider it as a privilege, because a lot of people in my country have no idea about it or access to areas or schools where they would value such an education. We have schools that don't value this. They're like, only focus on your studies, only focus on grades. Why do you want to go and do anything extracurricular? That was the beginning, the head start that I got, where I was able to be in these spaces where they appreciated extracurricular activities and wanted children to do that. And it had been great, because as soon as I started to do it, it became a sort of addiction, because I started to do multiple amount of MUNs, and then I started to chair in multiple of them. And after that, when I entered my college, you have a college MUN that you organize. And in that, I was supposed to be the secretary general for my college MUN, because it was a huge deal. And when I was nominated for that position, there was this another candidate who was a male, and he had very limited experiences and very little compared to me. And when you start thinking about this thing, you already know, right? You are going to be chosen because you have more experiences, you know how the things work. But to my surprise, he was chosen instead of me. And the reasoning that was given was, quote unquote, he has the potential to do better, and he has more time that he can give, because I, being a girl, would can't stay up there till late. And this event is something that is going to require me to stay in the college premises after dark as well. And that was surprising for me, and I was very affected by it, obviously. But then I just accepted the deputy secretary general position, because why not? Because you just have this feeling like, okay, fine, you don't know what to say, you don't know how to ask for your agency, and you're just lost in the conversation. Next things that started to happen after a point that I started to recognize was how girls in the MUN circuit were treated as, uh, the early grooming, the sexual harassment, how people only saw women, the girls who came, as like the after party things. So MUN stopped becoming an academic activity, an intellectual activity, and it started to become more like places where you could, quote unquote, get girls. And this is the kind of environment that led me to even be very frustrated and wanted to change these things, because when I was wanting to become the secretary general, I was very sure about how I wanted things to go, how I would maintain the security. A lot of women in my circuit have experienced sexual harassment because of these kind of events, and it has put model UN in a very negative space for these things. So these were the kind of things that came as an experience for me as a woman in the circuit in itself. I would like to, Noor, you can go on with this.
Definitely. And I really believe that even though your experience might be shocking to some, maybe in those who have not experienced, these kind of barriers, but a lot of global South participants would really understand where you're coming from. And due to my experience, it not the secretary general position part, but my team when I was a director was all women, women-led. The president was a woman. I was the director, tour research assistant. All of us were women. This didn't cause, problems where you can write about it on social media, but it caused maybe just tiny bits under the surface where you can see while you're talking, the delegates would be more open to like a male president and council, and like the rest of the roles could be filled by women. That's fine. Um, but yeah, it was definitely we pick up on these things. We pick up that maybe the academic content that we're delivering is not being like received as well as if like a man was delivering it. And yeah, the sharing can also, once you're seen as confident, seen as aggressive, and yeah, it does give negative connotations to men's spaces. But
But
we try our best to kind of encourage young girls to not be discouraged of this. And yeah, so I still have an introduction.
And then, Noor, I think something that really spoke to me, Rose, of what you just said, is that male person was chosen because of his potential. And I think that's something that occurs quite often, that men are given a positive, assumption of them doing well, whereas females oftentimes have to prove and prove and prove, and have to kind of outbalance a negative stereotype, whereas men most often, obviously, and I don't think we have to say this in this space, we cannot generalize anything, right? So there's, black sheep everywhere here and there. Not all men are one way, not all women are one way. And then we also have non-binary people that do not, adhere to one or the other of this, binary concept. So I think we need to be also careful with that. However, since we're in this space talking about women, I think that is something that is very important, that women have to work twice as hard in order to receive some similar accolades as the men. Something that I find that I try to also talk to my female and my male students about is that do not shy away from your emotions. Like, to have this, to appeal to someone in a speech, for example, at Model UN, to the emotions of the other person. And yes, I think stereotypically speaking, females are more in tune, generally with their emotions, and that is why they can access those in their speeches. But men can also do the same. And what I always appreciate doing is, when I, for example, organize a conference and I have to put my Dias team together, I rarely ever, only when I have no other choice, do I only have all male or all female Dias members, because I think we need to come together in our strength that we bring to the table, not just as this or that gender, but also as the human beings that we are. So I think that's always really important. And I tell my students, tap into whatever potential you have, whether that is your rhetorics, your negotiation style, this or that, and do not let some external force or person determine who you should be or who you can be. You show up as your best self, and then you kind of break through all the walls that whatever gender stereotypes are put in place for you. But this is certainly a very real thing. Alexandra, I don't know if you wanted to add something to it.
Well, I'll be happy to add something on it, and I will absolutely agree with that. And this phrase about the man potential, Rose, you got me into the deepest heart, because that unfortunately happened a lot in the society of the MUNers in my country earlier. So I gotta say that when I started, I was really lucky to be in the school and with the society of people who were doing MUNs as women and men together. So according to that, I didn't have these problems from this society. But you got to remember that out of this bubble of MUNers, there are other people the same age or older, especially older ones. And when I just started, we have to understand that like the Ukrainian society today, in last years, we move into this openness, and to all this policy that women can, women should, women must act same as men if not more even. But I'll tell you that the shadow that was on us for a long time, shadow of the Soviet Union education, what I mean here, that the woman is supposed to be only where? At the kitchen and giving birth to children. There was a huge problem. And there was another stereotype working there, that women in the politics or in international relations, diplomacy, whatever, will only cause problems because women are being dramatic or emotional or something like that. And I'm sure all of us hear that quite a lot even today. So when I started, at that point, we should understand. So there is a 12-year-old girl. Okay, I was doing my best since the other girls around me and the boys also. I will not say bad stuff here about our boys, and they were supporting us always very much. But at the same time, you come into the conference to another school, for example, yeah, and there are this kind of other people, and I had at that point half of pink hair. Okay, so there was a phase of my life, and a lot of people who were looking at me, I saw. And when I prepared after that for the next conferences, I knew that I'm going to have these looks that, okay, so you, whatever you are being with your style, what can you do here? Because you look non-standard, okay? And the organizers, I mean, the teachers, the older generation especially, they were looking at you like, what are you doing here? This is a diplomatic kind of stuff, and you're not supposed to be like you are here. So later, like, just the time passed, and I decided to make this kind of thing a challenge. So basically myself, it's a small thing, but for me it's a challenge that I've been doing for quite a lot of years now. My natural color of hair is quite dark, but as you see, I'm trying to get the blonde out of here. And I'll tell you that as soon as in Eastern European country you come somewhere in such an event with a blonde, everybody is expecting you to be absolutely stupid, okay? And they expect that you will say something so absolutely absurd that they are prepared to laugh at you. And when you don't do that, that is surprising. And that's the absolutely thing that always got on my nerves that much, that every time I really just make this more and more challenge. But at the same time, after that, I ask myself, why I have to do it as a challenge myself? Why, being who I am, who I want to be, who I like to be, I have to face this kind of prejudice from the very beginning? While if that happens to guys, even if they go to other color hair and stuff, that will not be faced to them. And that was always a thing. I see that we moving. I see what we're trying on different conferences in different countries. I see that this kind of trend is going behind, which is making me happy, absolutely. But still, sometimes when I prepare, being as a delegate or as a chair, I still keep that in mind, because that small girl, yeah, that was there in 2014, she got that trauma very much.
So, Alexandra, piggybacking off of this, what you just said, something that we also wanted to hear your opinion on is, how do you feel, for example, as a female, when someone says you made a mistake or this was not correct, or someone is, for example, critiquing on your on the foreign policy that you present as whichever country you're giving. The reason why I think this question is important, because oftentimes my female delegates will tell me, oh, there's this male delegate who tells me that the way I represent my country is incorrect. So oftentimes it's women that are being corrected, sometimes correctly so, sometimes incorrectly so. And so how do you deal with that when someone sees, and maybe Rose can start on this while you, Alexandra, think about this for a moment. Does this push you in your performance? Does this hinder you in your performance? Do you shy away from this, or do you actually gain strength from this critique and come out stronger? Even Rose, do you want to start us off?
Excellent question, actually, because this is something that happens a lot. It's happened a lot. At this point, I've just started to not care about it so much. And there's this one thing that I follow. It's a Google stolen quote that I read when I was in the rock bottom regarding these things, which was, only take criticism from people that you want advice from or would go to advice for. And that is something that I took so deeply, and that is something that has motivated me until now. And it's obvious, like, when we are in a field that is so evolving, it's always growing, it's always new knowledge, you can absolutely never have the entirety of knowledge. And it's okay that you are going to make mistakes in these fields. But there have been a lot of situations where there have been men who come up to me and tell me, Rose, your perspective on doing this thing is probably not the best one, or what you are saying is incorrect, or the way that you want your policy to go forward is incorrect, or something like that. And what Alexandra just said right now about, you having to have this being emotional part of it, which Sarah also touched on, and being emotional, and that is something that happens a lot, because when we this is something that I've noticed, is that when you are affected or when you care about an agenda personally, you tend to care about the people that are the stakeholders in that. And that makes you bring out a sphere of yourself that is emotional, that is caring. In your policies, you want a more caring policy. You don't want a hard and fast thing. You don't want a gun on your forehead kind of a situation when you're acting on things. And that was termed as emotional a lot of times, which is basic human empathy that you're showing towards people. And to be honest, I'm not going to say that I've been a great mature person and taken things like, oh my God, it's just you don't take criticism from people you don't go to advice for. But in those moments, I have felt very little. You feel your smallness in those moments, like how badly they make you feel like you are, whatever thing that you've done, whatever reading you've done, whatever amount of intelligence you've stored, they will make you feel very small in front of all of those things. And that is the moment where it really teaches you how much you need to trust yourself, because you will find men in my community, you will find men who are being heard and being listened to, and even when they're honestly talking nonsense, when there's no constructive argument from their side, and they will still be appreciated. When there are misogynistic and racist things that they say, and they will still be heard, because he's a man, he probably makes sense, and there is a reason why he does that or says that. And when I used to say something, I would always be asked for clarifications again and again.
Exactly, which brings us back to that men have that comfort of having that confidence put in them, whereas we have to work towards that. I really like the quote that you shared, and yes, probably most of them, I want to say, do not mean any harm by correcting. They just want it matter of factly. However, to me personally, that's the difference between impact and intention. Your intention can be something wildly different than the impact that you have on that person. I once had a male delegate explain Germany's foreign policy to me, and I was like, excuse me, I am from Germany. I'm not, I don't know it all. And that's something that I tell my students as well. Nobody knows it all. No matter who stands in front of you and tells you that maybe they did read that one policy paper that you didn't happen to find, right, when you prepared. But you, in turn, read a different paper that they didn't know about. And this is why it's crucial that we come together with all our knowledge and all our skills, right? And that we do not try to put in this hierarchy. And that's what I tell my students. And if you don't wish to work with this person because they are being condescending towards you, you have every right and my full support that you walk away from that working group. Because I want you to learn something from this. You don't have to fight out every single battle and prove to someone constantly that you have a right to be in that space. So, but Alexandra, let's hear from you.
Well, I gotta say that me personally, as I know a lot of my friends, MUNers, I mean female MUNers, when you come, especially when you come at the conference, especially when you are just starting this way, okay, you listen almost to everybody. It's not because you either want it or not, you just feel yourself unsure, you feel yourself non-confident. You already, and personally, I was always that A+ student, the perfectionist, okay? And that's why when you hear in these kind of situations, the words like that from other people that destroy everything that you've done, you want to rip it all off and throw it away, and you feel yourself exactly like Rose said, you feel how small and miserable and little you are in that situation. But I gotta tell you that with the time, with the experience, at some point you really come, of course, to the decision to listen to the people who you would like to hear and who would you like to come to advice for. But at the same time, we have to, it's a healthy thing. If that is the constructive kind of thing, of course we gotta listen to that, just in the matter to become happy, and in that experience, and to become better, but only if that is constructive. So I gotta tell you, when we hear something, I always made kind of a scheme for myself, okay, like a mechanism. What should I accept, what should I not accept? So I do this small kind of analysis. Okay, the phrase was said how, if there was kind of an emotion in that, I would not consider that. Why? Because as soon as in this particular thing, if the person wants to help you with something, they would not be said some kind of emotionally, like you did so bad, or something like that. Yeah, the reasoning, as soon as the reasoning comes, they would be said like kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, in that case, I already see most of them are done in the very emotional way, like ill, and so on. At that point, when I was just starting, so of course, if I were I would not say it would be smarter. If I would just be more confident and I would have that mechanism earlier, I would be much healthier. That's number one. And I would not consider so much things as I did, which were absolutely not acceptable, not necessary, and absolutely not correct. That's the funniest thing. But I gotta tell you that if you already are in such a situation, the main thing for yourself to ask this question, kind of, do I want to hear that personally? Yeah, do I find any meaning in that? Do I see that person as the person who can give this kind of constructive and smart opinion? Yes, we do accept opinion of everyone. We say thank you, we are being polite, we are doing MUN, we are being diplomats, absolutely. But in your head, you have your own process going on, okay? And you yourself either accept that or not. So I'll tell you, by now, I do accept all of those words. And the funniest things I always write down just as a memory. And when I have these kind of complicated moments when I feel myself non-confident in everything, I start rereading those things that were absolutely absurd, okay? And from the people said in such a harsh way, in such a way that you feel yourself again kind of miserable and so on. And you read that, you understand that, okay, no, that's absolutely like, that was sad, I should not consider that. I'm doing good, I'm doing better, I can do better, I will do better. Those people are staying if they're paying too much attention to me at that point, instead of considering being better themselves. And why should I give that if they matter other business more than themselves? For me, it's always the most important point of that thing.
Exactly. I really liked what you said, Sasha. Perfectionism is exhausting, and especially in my context, whenever you enter a space, there's always like, okay, everyone's looking at me. I must prove that I am competent 100% in preparation, delivery, the way I talk. Everything must be perfect because as soon as I make a mistake, that's it. Like they're not going to invite me again. They're gonna laugh. They won't invite other women again, not just myself. So you are an ambassador basically, and you don't even know it. And you're just proving your existence, and you're proving that you deserve to be in that space all this time, which is exhausting. And it kind of brings us to the kind of young girls context. Do you guys think that young girls nowadays face the same obstacles that you faced when you started this journey? Or do you feel that things are improving? And this can also be specific to your context, especially, or your culture, because, of course, all of us have different barriers that young girls face, especially. And I know Alexander said that I'm very, very young, so I'm going to have a perspective on this in girls as well. But I do start with Sarah's experience as a faculty advisor. What have you seen in young girls today? What obstacles that are new that you've experienced so far?
Yeah, this is a great question. Actually, earlier when Rose was saying about having access to these spaces, something that I find very sad actually in Germany is that Model UN is something that is almost exclusively for higher academia, so meaning university. Yes, there is, and I'm also part of the United Nations Association of Germany, and we do have a program called United Nations in the Classroom, so they are trying to bring it more there. But in Germany, you have 3 different ways of finishing out of school. And those separate school systems, personally, I believe, enable you to access different spaces. And unfortunately, as of right now, I believe Model UN is a space that is still very elitist. So you need to have financial means, you need to have the academic environment, and by that I mean a teacher that informs you about this. So growing up in Germany, I had not heard about Model UN until when I went to university, and I saw it just listed as a class. That's it. And I was like, what is this? And to be honest, sadly, this is the same with the United Nations in itself. So I think Model UN and the UN, both, at least in German society, have the issue of not a lot of people know about it, to be honest. And that's something that I think first and foremost needs to be dealt with, because young, adults, whether it's male or female, if we don't know about these spaces, they cannot access it. And then for women especially, I think when I was a delegate, we were actually 3 female delegates out of 20 in total. So the majority was male. And now it's actually switching over. Now I rarely ever have more than maybe 5, 10 male delegates, and the rest is female. So right now in my group, 1/3 is male and 2/3 is female, which I absolutely love that women are doing this. However, the question is, how do we keep women to continue doing it? Not just Model UN, but politics in general. And something that has often been told to me is an obstacle is that women fear that they do not know everything. And they'd rather shy away from something than to just be there, show up, fully knowing that I will never know everything. And that's why I make it a point in my class when they ask a question, sometimes I don't know, because I do not know it all. And you know what we do? We go to Google and we find the answer together. But I make it a point to tell them I don't know. And I think there's so much power in that sentence that I hope to encourage them and inspire them that you do not need to know it all. So I think that is something that I work towards, because I see it as an obstacle for especially women, like I said, that fear of not being good, or nor you earlier said perfect, but there is no perfection. There's style, and there's gusto, there's, that there's variety. But we need to celebrate that diversity also in how we approach Model UN. And so that's what I try to do, which is both the obstacle and my solution for it. But I look forward to hearing yours. Rose, do you want to continue?
Sarah, absolutely beautiful, because when you said you teach your students the value of I don't know, it's kind of setting a great example for everybody. I know how much I would love to hear that from people who I think know everything, because that would make me feel at ease. A lot of times, a lot of spaces where I felt like, okay, should I not speak because there's so much imposter syndrome, there's so much self-doubt that I'm dealing with. And I think when it comes to the context of Nepal, and I won't say for South Asia, because I know there are countries in South Asia that are doing amazing with their immune circuits. But when it comes to Nepal specifically, I feel like there were girls' participation. Initially, it was very low. It wasn't as much, because I remember, as Sarah said, as she was the 3 in the 20, I was like, we had 10 girls in a committee of 60 or something. And that was very weird, because a lot of my MUN experiences were girls coming up and talking about, oh, did you wear this heel? Or, oh, guys coming up and saying, do you want a rose for like after party thing or this? And it's never done in the authentic manner that MUN should be done until my first international conference that I went for for MUN. That was where I realized, no, you don't actually discuss, what is the size of your heel, or what is the color of your hair, or do you want to go out on a date afterwards. It's not something that you discuss during an unmoderated caucus. What an unmoderated caucus is really for is that lobbying is the value of things that you do, is how you build your skill of negotiation, diplomacy in that moment, and how crucial those things are. And I feel like even now it has a sense of a lot of accessibility issues, because I, as a chair, or I, as a DS member, whenever I am there, I have been participated. I make it a point that I make my study guide myself, and the way that is very comprehensible to everybody. I make flowcharts, I make T diagrams, I give out informations so that it's very accessible for everybody, how I would like, as a first time MUNer, to see a study guide. And even when we are going through our entire discussion series, I make it a point to make the female delegates in the committee know how important it is for them to voice out, even though they are so much in doubt. Because I see men, and they usually take the stance of USA. They always are the delegates of USA or Russia or North Korea, which is hilarious to be like. I love being the delegate of one of these countries because it's so much aggression. There's so much power in when we're speaking. So I encourage girls to go on and do these things and be in these roles instead of like just doing all.
Rose, if I can just chime in there, because something, and I don't think any of my delegates are in this space, so I think I can share this here. What I do when I do country assignments, I give and whether these are female or male, the loud, outgoing, confident people, they never get the Russia, the US from me. They get the smaller countries, and then those that are more quiet, they get the big countries, because I want them to learn that whatever strength they bring to the table is important for whichever country you represent. And you can be allowed, sandwich and, the grenadines, and you can be a quieter USA. There is no one way of doing the right thing. And I think what's important is, especially when you talk about, like, do we discuss our clothing, or, what the after party is going to be like? It's very important, the framework that is being set by faculty advisors, chaperones, but also by the conference organizers. I have a zero tolerance for any of this. So, and that sets the tone. So I think whether you're a delegate or whether you're a dais or faculty, you need to set the framework and make very clear communication about what you accept and what you tolerate and what you do not. And so I think it's important that you chime in whenever something occurs that is outside of those lines. But I don't know, Noor, did you want to add something to this?
Sure. I mean, there was just one keyword that Chris said that, it was like, okay, that hit the spot, and that is accessibility. So many young girls' ambition, especially in my country, like, stop at a certain ceiling because they know no matter how much they work, they will not have access to certain spaces. They will not have like these specific delegations. They will not be heard in that way. So accessibility and like the obstacles really just end there because so many young girls already have the opinions. They already are prepared with research. They're not encouraged to continue in that way. It's as soon as we increase accessibility and make it normal for teams to be all women led or for councils to elevate women's voices. As soon as you make that normal, I think it would be mutually beneficial as well. Like we're not trying to take, male-led spaces away from them. We're trying to mutually benefit. We're trying to help each other be lifted. And that's basically the biggest obstacle. As soon as we increase accessibility and like to raise that ambition as well, like they could go global 100%, especially in my context. And we'll finish this question with Alexander's point of view because you started at being really young as well.
Oh, well, I gotta tell you that I actually agree to all of those moments, and being organized some MUNs myself, I do have the same thing as Sarah, because giving the countries the good, like as MUNers say, the good, interesting countries to the people who usually are very quiet, that's always the key, because these people, and usually those are girls, that's the thing. And I gotta tell you that in Ukraine we do have a lot of MUNs on the school level. So when they start, it's the age of 12, 13. they do have this access, but they at the same time do have the environment that surrounds them. And sometimes the problem they face is basically, as I had it also, not saying anything bad, but at the same time, what are you playing? Why are you spending your time? You better go do your homework and do something useful. And most people who heard that phrase were the girls, the people that I've been participating in different MUNs. And that is the moment that you make it all accessible. You make these training sessions, you do have normal conversation with them, and you see that fire in their eyes. Okay, you encourage them, they are already like absolutely ready to go and they know they can do that, but after that they go home and that's it. Your work has been erased. Unfortunately, that also happens, and that is again just this kind of shadow of the society and of the way how we and previous generations were raised, and that sometimes becomes a very big problem. But I'll tell you that the more it becomes a usual thing, and with us it does, and especially I'll tell you, the online MUNs helped in that, because coming to online event, if you just starting, is easier for them personally, mentally easier to prepare for that than you go and you all are there physically. So now, starting with pandemic and continuing where we are now, we are having, of course, the online events only. And I gotta tell you that I see much more girls, which makes me happy, because after that 1-2 experiences, it will be much more easier for them to come there physically. They will know what to do and they feel themselves much more confident. And that is the perfect thing about that.
Love that. And thank you all for sharing your experiences on this. Kind of to end on a positive note, and also it's an opportunity for all our attendees to ask any questions. If any of our personal stories resonated with you, please let us know. If you are comfortable asking the question on stage, please write it in the question and answer box on your right hand side. If you're not comfortable being on the stage but also want to ask a question, just use the normal feed and we'll get back to you. But the last question I would like for all of us to answer, to end on a positive note, is there any woman role model in your personal life, public figure, anyone that you look up to, that you have in your sights, and also is there any significance of her being a woman, not being a man per se, or does that add any difference to women you look up to or the people you look up to in general? And I want to start with Rose on this.
So I don't have a big role model like somebody would be a celebrity kind of a person, but there is this one senior of mine who really introduced me to MUNs, who really introduced me to. She has been breaking the glass ceiling every single step and being showing me that there is this thing possible. There's this thing possible. For me, it has always been Shivani Di, and Di is what we call elder sister in our language. And for the reason why she would be is because it's very easy to see in the Western side of the world, you have so many women doing so many amazing things, but it does not translate over here. It does not at all translate over here because the opportunities, the access, every single thing, it's very screwed. It's very difficult to even get into these spaces. But when I see a person who comes from my school, who comes from my background, from my culture, and I see her going and reaching these spaces, and breaking the glass ceilings and going above and beyond, that gives me a lot of hope, and that is something that I wish to do for my juniors as well. And I feel like being a woman and in these spaces, it just is a lot of empathy and a lot of intellect that comes together in making the world, more accessible to and holding spaces for people who come after you by looking at you, following your steps. That would be my role model.
Thank you so much. Alexandra, do you have a role you'd like to share with us?
You know, I also not have such a, let's say, like big yeah, like role model and everything. But yeah, I have this woman when I just started my MUN. I remember on the very first MUN, she was the head of the council that I've been in. And at that point, when I lost everything, I remember, like, again, you're 12, you are all of that I discussed. It's your first MUN. You're representing India in the topic of cyberbullying, while before you never heard that word even, and you are trying to understand everything in one. Okay, and I remember that at some point I was so much lost. I didn't want to take the word even. I was sure that before the cue of my opening speech will come, I'll go away. She grabbed me physically and mentally, and she told me that, girl, you can do that. I know, I've seen how you've been preparing and everything. And after that, just it happened. It was her last grade. After that, she graduated, and for a few years I kind of lost any connection with her. We had a big age gap. And later, just Facebook, a wonderful thing, showed me her, and I followed her again. We started talking, and I see that that woman from just, like, again, as many people in Ukraine say, just MUN. She's been in the company. She went to one of the offices of UN in Ukraine, then second, and went abroad with the UN. And every her step, what she's doing, it was and it is what I am planning and how I am planning my life. And at the moments when I feel myself so sad that I don't know what to do next, and having very complicated situation in your life because of the war, when everything stops at some point, you always feel that, okay, that is the end. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go next, because I kind of lost the direction and understanding whether they're gonna be tomorrow or not. And she has been posting something, either the stories or posts, and every day she's been encouraging me. And at some point, the half of year passed, I texted her, like, I don't know whether you remember me or not. I don't know whether you saw that I'm liking your posts and rating the comments, but you encouraged me so much. And she responded to me with a big text, and that text from time to time I read when I have this bad mood or I feel myself non-confident. And I'm gonna tell you that this moment, when people do something just from their heart, they impress me very much. And I feel that when it's not, there are people who do that kind of in an actor way. They are not real in that, and those people are trying to impress someone, and that probably does work. But for myself, I need to feel that the person is passionate with that thing. And I'm gonna tell you that at some point, um you can change this kind of role models. The main thing that you don't hang up on them that much, because when we're young and when we're just starting, sometimes we do have, and I did have such a problem before, that I hang up on that person, and I decided that, again, you are just 12, you don't understand much at that point yet. You think that just being with that person fully and feeling that person is the right thing. It's also not the right thing, because you kind of start losing yourself and losing, you're doing the same, but you're doing it with your own perspective. That's how it's supposed to be, because you are the unique human being, and that's it. So I do have that person, and she inspires me a lot till now, and I'm sure that's going to continue, because I see how passionate she is about it. But at the same time, I do kind of control myself till now not to jump over, so that you don't hang up on that person, because that sometimes can break you at some point. You got to be careful with that.
Thank you so much for that. I think it was so inspiring. I hope we're all that person to young girls after us as well, for the next generation. Sarah, I know that you're already like our role model, and role model for all your delegates as well. But has there been any woman that kind of uplifted that mindset in you?
To be honest, I've been thinking a lot about this question, and I mean, yes, of course, I could say, like, the big names, of course, that we all know, of like female leaders throughout the world history, even. But I don't think I can. And honestly, both Rose and Alexandra, when you shared that, I don't have a female person that introduced me to Model UN or that taught me Model UN. They were all male, to be honest. So I just realized that it's something I never really thought about. And I think when you ask me who is a role model or who inspires me, I gotta say it's women throughout. It's like, It's my secretary generals for, the big conference that we do, that when I ask them, hey, do you see yourself as sec gen, that are like, ooh, I don't know if I'm ready for this. But then they take that anxiety and they turn it into strength, and they just keep on rocking and doing this. It's women like you that are just doing, in whatever space they are in, their best, and they lead with conviction and intention and empathy and compassion. And it's also the men, because we cannot do it without the men. We need to all do it together. The men that take care of their children, or that raise kids, or lend a hand to a woman, they all inspire me. And I think something that, and Noor, you touched upon that as well, we cannot forget that we ourselves are probably role models to some people that may not reach out to us, but we still inspire them. And I think that's important for us to also keep in mind. Whatever we do, there's always the potential to inspire. And a quote that I saw a couple of months ago, and it's been with me, and this goes back to Rose, what you were saying: we lift as we climb. So whenever I reach something, I make sure I keep that door open. I make sure that the ladder that I climbed up gets more and more sturdy, so that other people can follow me. And I think that is something that inspires me, that collective will and that collective hope, because I don't know what I would do without it. So that's really the inspiration that I think Model UN has given me, continues to give me, and hopefully will give me for a long, long time.
I really want to add something to
Go
that,
ahead.
like to the last points that were, oh my God, that was beautiful. And the thing that is that you see a role model within yourself, that your resilience, the way that you've been doing things, the hardships that you've come over, and every single thing that makes you also a role model. And that is so important for us to remember, because as Alexandra was saying, how she loves to look up to people, but she's also considering, with a grain of salt at times, because you don't fully you see people and you see them as human beings, and human beings that are faulty, but you also see yourself and you're like, yeah, I am faulty as well. And never idolizing anybody, but also seeing yourself, the strength that you have within you, and bringing it out there. Because it's very easy to get strength from outside, but it's the strength that we take from inside that actually makes us something. And that's why remember yourself as role models as well.
And reach out to the people. I recently got an email when I was at one of those low points, right? And I got an email from a former delegate, and this person told me she's now interning at the UN, and she wouldn't be where she is now if she hadn't done Model UN. And she reached out, and it was this very simple email, but it made my day, my week, probably my month, I don't know. But so I always encourage people, be open with your praise. And when Alexandra, like, you reached out to this person because you may not know what value you can add to their day, what strength you can provide them to continue going this path. So I think we need more. And yes, this sounds cheesy, but I love being cheesy. I think we need more cheesiness in this world. Share if you love someone, share if if someone did something that inspired you to keep going. I think that's very important. And that's why I always love, closing ceremonies at Model UNs, or when sessions end and everybody writes on placards, and it has like this kind of holiday camp kind of feeling to it almost, because there's so much hope and collaboration and community in that. And I think if we just openly celebrate that, that can lead to a lot of inspiration as well.
100%. I really feel that. It's very hard to choose women role models. It's so interesting, the four of us have like a specific person. I don't know what that says. I have a theory that we're all just secretly like our own role models, because we faced so many challenges that we're like, okay, I know that I'm alone in this, or I know that I'm doing this myself. And because of this mindset, it's very hard to relate to someone else, kind of look up to them and follow in their footsteps. So that is interesting. I mean, a lot of the attendees as well would find difficulty in finding role models as well. me, the previous segments I've worked with, all my hearing teams or women, all of them, you kind of get something from each person, and not necessarily being role models, but being someone who've added to yourself. I think we're all a sum of all of the people that we've met, especially the women that we've met. MUN is not just an activity for me, it has empowered me in my job, in my career. It has kind of helped me choose what I want to focus on, with working and with my academic pursuits and everything. And yeah, I am so thankful to each of you who have shared your experience with honesty, vulnerability, and I'm so happy that all of you chimed in your different experiences. And yeah, this is considered the end of our panel. Special thank you to our guest speakers, to all our attendees, and to the events team who helped us all set this up and made this possible. Thank you so much, everyone. And you guys are welcome to reach out to any of us. Our socials will be available to you. And thank you all so much, guys. I had so much fun speaking with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noor.
Thank you so much for having us. Honestly, it's a beautiful panel.
True. Thank you. It was a great experience.
Thank you all. I'll see you all soon. Bye.